For the second interview in our Kentucky Narrative segment, I had the pleasure of sitting down with a man very important to Kentucky's Republican Party. Bob Gable is credited with building the foundation of the state's GOP from nothing. Now, Mr. Gable is the first to admit that his memory isn't quite what it used to be. And as you'll see, he's not much on taking credit for accomplishments. But it was an honor to sit down with him to talk about his time in Kentucky politics. Enjoy. Mr. Gable, thank you so much for sitting down with me today.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
So I want to start at the beginning and ask you what made you want to enter Kentucky politics?
I have no idea. I was brought to Frankfort by Louis Nunn, who asked me to be Commissioner of Parks. And one thing led to another, and I ended up as chairman of the party. And that was sort of the reason I like that, because I got to help pick candidates and do things that the chairman of the party is supposed to do.
Absolutely. And you are credited with kind of building the Kentucky Republican Party. I think
whoever you're talking to are telling pretty good lies. Thanks.
Well, it's more than a couple people who say this about you. And I know that when you took over the party, I think it had $300. Is that right?
Something like it.
So tell me about...
We're rolling in money.
So tell me about the early days of you taking over the Republican Party and kind of your goals about how to advance the party.
I was trying to find good candidates to run for good offices, winnable offices. And I spent a lot of time on that. I thought that was the only way to do it. You had to have candidates or you didn't have a party. Well, we did spend a good deal of time raising money for the party to try to have a base of cash reserves to help candidates when we spotted a good candidate. They didn't have to raise all their money themselves. And that was helpful, and I attributed that to that I attributed some of the success we had.
So you were raising money for the party and for these candidates, but how did you go about deciding which races to get involved in, where to recruit the candidates?
Well, just by good guesses, I guess. I had some information as to the results of previous elections. And if we had a particularly good candidate, we would say we'd be likely to get some better results than that. Sort of winging it is all I can tell you, because it was not a science, it was an art. It was self-taught. I'm not sure we was always well taught.
And who were some of those candidates at that time?
I can't even remember that far back, but we had a lot of good ones.
And I saw that one of the names that came up in my research was Terry Carmack, was somebody that you brought on to help with the party.
He was a big help.
And he has gone on to do great things.
Marvelous, sure.
So it seems like you kind of like reinvented his career.
He doesn't run McConnell, but he helps.
So how old was Terry at that time?
He was more than 14. He was somewhere around 25, I guess. I don't remember, honestly.
So that's kind of a testament of the kind of people that you recruited in that time, I would say.
Well, if I can take credit for Terry Carmack, I will.
So what were some of the issues that you feel really bolstered the Kentucky Republican Party in that time? Because Democrats had been in control for so long, there were very few registered Republican voters at that time. So over the years, what were the biggest issues that contributed to the growth?
I have no idea that I could remember, but of course, I think we were right a lot more often than the other side was, and I thought that made a big difference. Issues were basic, but there were so many different issues I can't begin to suggest which ones were more telling than others. Well, Mitch McConnell was more than part of the transition to getting a greater power in the Republican Party. He was the thing that really caused the major shifts, I think. He was very capable, as he still is very capable, and he turned Kentucky from thinking kind of Democrat to thinking with enthusiasm that they were maybe Republicans. And nothing helps winning like winning, and that helped a lot.
Absolutely. And even in the recent years, I've met people who say they're registered Democrat, but they actually consider themselves to be Republican.
Right.
I think that's been kind of a common theme over multiple generations recently. But do you think that the election of Ronald Reagan or something along those lines kind of helped push the Republican Party forward and shifted people in Kentucky?
All of those kinds of things. Reagan's election was important. Some of our local elections were very important because if you can get it right down to the precincts and get the precincts to switch their votes a little bit, you can make more progress than if they're not switching their votes. If they just continue voting Democrat because that's all they think they're supposed to do, that's not going to get the job done.
Now, you had worked for so long to make the party what it is, and you had seen so many years of Democratic control in most areas of government. So when the Republicans finally took control of the state house, what was that like for you?
Paradise. It was absolutely wonderful. It was the achievement for the party of an enormous monumental change. It had not happened for a long time.
And are you proud of the work they've produced in those couple years since then?
Well, I've been proud of them without exception, mainly without exception, for a long time.
Now, do you feel like the Republican Party in Kentucky should focus more on issues or on winning elections? Because that's a big debate these days is, do you focus on the issues you care about or do you care more about getting elected every couple years?
Well, from the party's point of view, issues are what wins elections. And I think you have to have winnable issues and winnable candidates, both. So a candidate that can't articulate a program that makes sense to voters is not going to win. On the other hand, a candidate who can articulate a program and interest voters in what he's talking about has a good chance to win. And so I tried to find those kinds of candidates.
Now, you were a candidate at one point as well. You ran for governor.
Oh, I can hardly remember that, but I guess you're right.
So in that election, I believe the incumbent was Julian Carroll at the time.
Yeah, I remember that name from somewhere.
So what was it like running for governor?
Well, it was pretty easy because I knew I was pretty sure not to win. And so I didn't have to worry about making mistakes.
And you carried a truth bell, as I remember.
Which was more darn fun than the world you can imagine. The truth bell was a little bell, you just hit the top of the bell and it went ring! And I was able to use that on TV when I was in some debates with Julian. And I found some opportunities to ring the untruth bell. We called it the truth bell, but it only went off when he told a whopper.
So if you knew you weren't going to win, why did you want to get in?
Well, because I thought that was the only way a Republican could go in Kentucky. You had to build a stronger party, and I hope to be able to lead us into a stronger party. And somehow it has happened.
So we just had a governor's race, and we have a Democratic governor-elect after 4 years of a Republican governor.
That's a big step backwards.
What do you think led to that? I mean, obviously, I think a lot of it was the issues in this past 4 years, especially pensions and teacher pensions. But do you think that this signals kind of more of a Democratic comeback, or do you think it's just kind of a top-of-the-ticket type of
Oh, it must be a top-of-the-ticket thing because the Republicans are always right. And they didn't quite make it this time, so we've got to get that cured.
So what do you suggest I do over the next 4 years to ensure that they would take over again?
Well, do everything right. That's easier said than done, I find, but that's basically what you need to do. You have to win the enthusiastic support of a majority of the voters.
And to you, what is right? Doing the right thing in terms of...
I don't know how to express what I would think would be right, except that you want to avoid doing wrong or making silly mistakes or just not thinking. You need to have a clear program of what you think is right, and being able to enunciate it and set forth clearly the ideas that you hold and try to get other people to agree with you.
And is that what you would consider, what do you consider to be the best qualities in a Republican candidate for office?
Winning. Being, in the first place, energetic, not willing to just sit back and wait for something to happen, but rather going out and making things happen and being an active candidate. I think a persuasive, active candidate is hard to beat.
Absolutely. So what do you feel are the biggest differences between Kentucky politics at the time you were in charge of the party and now?
We're winning a lot more now.
Do you feel like the focus on any issues is different? Any of the kinds of campaigns people are running? Any big changes in those areas?
I can't analyze that because I have not been close to individual campaigns for a long time. But I think they're running pretty good campaigns these days.
Absolutely. So as you look forward, what do you hope for Kentucky politics and for the Republican Party of Kentucky?
Well, I hope there are no more Democrats. I'd like to have them all change their registrations and change their outlook and become Republicans.
And it's happening in Kentucky, slowly but surely, like I said.
If it could happen a little faster, that would suit me better.
And like I said, when you took over the party, I think there were around 500,000 registered voters. We're up over, I think it's like 1.5 million at this point.
Is it that high?
Yeah.
But is that the Republicans?
Yes, Republicans.
Oh, well, that's not enough.
So, but other southern states kind of progressed a little faster in the switch between party registration. Why do you think Kentucky was pretty far behind on that front?
I don't know. We weren't paying attention, I guess. Other states did make some fast progress. I spent some time in Tennessee at one time trying to help Howard Baker get elected. And he was a close friend, and from just over the border in Tennessee. We claimed him as a Southern Kentuckian, nice man and very capable man. Made a wonderful United States Senator. But that was extremely important to my development of an interest in politics because I got very much in the thick of it with him, moved down to Knoxville for a couple of times. He ran twice to get elected once. And that was an extraordinary experience because he was such a good candidate. He was so knowledgeable, so capable. His father and his mother had been congressmen, and one followed the other's death. But he was just a splendid man, and people began catching on to that fact, and it helped a lot.
Now, is there anything about your time in Kentucky politics that you wish you could have done or would have done differently?
I wish I could have won more. I would have done differently whatever I did wrong to try to win more.
Do you have any regrets, though?
Not at all. I had a wonderful time doing it. I met a lot of very nice people. I was supported by a lot of very nice, capable people, and I had a lot of fun.
Is there any advice that you would give to future leaders of the Kentucky Republican Party about how to continue the success they've had in recent years?
Select the best candidates you can possibly find. Encourage the best candidates you can possibly find, get them to run, and try to have enough money saved up that you can support them some.
Perfect. Well, Mr. Gable, I really appreciate you sitting down with me. It's been such a pleasure to talk with you.
It's been a pleasure to talk with you. You're very charming and very persuasive. Thank you.
Thank you so much.